Let's pretend.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another session of very interesting discussion. Hi, Fabian.
Hi from my side as well. Hi, Kishin. Hi, everyone.
So today we're talking at least the two reality. There is the reality that is perceived very subjectively from the point of view of a person. And this is filtered with how we grow up, our culture that we live in, our ability to question, our clarity, all of that. Each person is different. So even though we might be twin, we still be seen different. Even everything is the same. So, but that's not the reality that I want to discuss. I want to talk about, say if you see this, like, what do you see?
I'm seeing a dark green glass.
Okay.
So that's the object I'm seeing, but I also see a sort of light stream on it and your hand holding it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that is being taught to you, right? So everything that we see is being taught to us, or that's how we learn. But to begin with, this is not black, for example. In the reality of it is the wavelength that emit, that isn't absorbed into this object, hit our eyeball and go into our brain, and we've been taught to perceive that shade is black. We label it, we name it. The same thing with you see me doing this, is an automatic a cup. That's
Yes,
because because it's a learned thing. So
that's right.
Yeah, so we all share this reality. We all need to learn this reality to function in this reality, right? So that is one reality that I'm talking about: the shared reality, the conventional reality, the functional reality. And we need to know that is what we are. So any changes, or even if some people who have psychic power of hearing, they need to know what reality they are in, right? And don't get mixed up. If you get mixed up between reality, you get sent into a mental hospital, you know?
Yeah.
So that's come back to a healthy, balanced sense of everything, right? So that's the importance of being grounded and being balanced and healthy, because we know what reality we are in, and we don't get mixed up and merge and start talking about and start talking to somebody who isn't there.
Yes. Yes.
And the other reality that I want to talk about is the ultimate reality. When you hear these people say, you see reality as it is. When you get to that stage, when you get to the center of the onion, you see both. But you have to progress from seeing a cup as a cup to looking at a cup and not see a cup. And then when you are able to adapt being emptiness, then you can see both. You can see a cup as a cup and a cup as not a cup at the same time, right? So with the whole process of transformation and changes, you learn to adapt from the ultimate reality and integrate it into the conventional reality, and being able to see both at the same time. So do you know what I mean? Do you have any question regarding that? I know it's a bit confusing.
No, it's I totally understand it. It's like as with the cup scenario, it's like you see the cup, but like and that's for me, that's the reality, to see it as dark green, or to label it as a dark green, and to label it as a glass. And it can be also it can be a lot more. It can be a vessel, it can be this, it can be that. It's just what we got trained sort of to label things. So that's also for everyone else. So I don't know, we are 8.4 billion people on the world, so in the world. So basically they all have their own reality. So that's 8.4 billion realities of the things we can experience with our senses, and we got trained differently in the definition of words, in whatever, in a way of seeing and hearing things and thinking about things. So that is the conventional reality. That's which conditioned. That's which is sort of artificial, maybe. And then the other one is basically, to what I understand, is to see the cup, but you don't have say a ringing bell saying, this is dark green and this is a cup. So this is, you basically see it with, this is what I understand, of course, with my conventional understanding of it. But I look at this object, and then I don't even label it as a cup, or I don't even label it what kind of color it has. So and that, for everyone, for all this 8.4 billion people, would be the same, right? If they reach that state, that's basically the see reality as it really is, like things and objects, without having the immediate response of the brain or the consciousness jumping in saying, that is this, that is that, and that belongs to whom, and la la la, right? So that's what I understand what you say.
Yeah. So 8.4 billion people have that potential, have that capacity, but that doesn't mean they can.
So what are you saying? Like they have the ability, but they don't. Then that doesn't mean they can.
No,
That's what
yeah.
you mean?
So for 8.4 billion people, when they see a cup, that's all they can see, a cup. They can't see anything else. They can't not see it as a cup.
Yes.
Because the perception, consciousness and perception is so, it's an automatic. It's so dependent. It's so automatic, leading to the next. That's
Yes.
there is no gap. There is no no gap of silence, or no gap of space or emptiness between the two moments of different.
They're linked. They're linked like a chain. It's like dependent origination in a way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they all dependent, and they co-arise, they depend on each other to
Mm-hmm.
exist. So yeah, and it happens so fast that they don't have a choice
Yes.
to not see it as a cat. It's
And then
only mm,
feeling jumps in also, right? Which is actually the whole disaster. Like if they see something and then they really get angry with it, and then the totally reality is like you're totally absorbed in that feeling. Like there's not only perception bound into it, and not only consciousness, but also the feeling, and then the mental formation. I mean, we talked about the five processes, the five khandhas, which make a person, and then it's totally like, yeah, it can't be different.
yeah, yeah. So it's the feeling component that's quite a strong drive for people to decide, or to be or not to be,
Mhm.
to stay or not to stay. It's the feeling component, and the thinking. Um, in counseling or in psychology, you have this thing called CBT, which is like cognitive and behavioral therapy, and that's for a person to start to be aware of this process of thinking affecting the feeling and behaviors. But when we train the mind, we have to go way beyond that. We have to be able to interrupt it, right? We
Mhm.
have to be able, that's why mindfulness is so important, because you're able to focus on the body and you realize, oh, my thinking stop, or my thinking about this feeling or about this person stop.
Mhm.
uh, and when it stopped, my feeling reduced, right? It's not so painful anymore, it's less intense. So yeah, so we have to go deeper than that. We have to
Mhm.
be able to distinguish between pain and suffering. um, that is a healing in itself.
Yes, that's right. Because it's, once, and we've all been there. Sort of, you are in sort of depression, right, or like in a very bad mood, and then you encounter the day, and then everything what happens sort of adds up to it, right? It builds up. It comes, and that's bad, and that's bad, and then the perception, of course, changes, filtered and fed by this feeling of negativity, right? And then you see everything in that way, and of course that leads to sort of very bad uh, thoughts, and feelings, and even like actions. Right, and yeah, so that's very important to stop that sort of with mindfulness also in the daily life. It can be of great benefits to have that
Mm.
understanding.
The more you purify, the more the pollution of the mind, or the obstacle or the hindrance calm down of the mind calm, um, the more we have clarity, and we are able to be more of the observer, and we be able to see things more objective. So that
Hmm.
is a change in reality, right? Changes in seeing reality in itself. Um, and then, but uh, when you are in the center, not right in the center, when you are the center of the onion, and you still have the petals, you live into reality. at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But only you know, like nobody knows.
Yes, except if they had this sort of superpower to know the mind of others, so to speak, and they've been there too.
Well, superpower is that's another thing. Um, Superpower is dependent on each. They will have certain kind of superpower, but it's different, very different to each individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so now we know about this two kinds of reality, and that basically the conventional reality is based upon the sense of self, and the other reality is based on the absence of sense of self, or like the expanded consciousness, we might also say.
Well,
Um, yeah.
well, you tap a little bit there. Um, so there's many conventional reality because it depends on the sense of self. It's depend on where your sense of self is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your sense of self is very engrossed in the five senses, well, that's all you see, right? All you see is um, what scientific proven, what is matter, what you see and what you hear is what is the reality, because you are
Yes.
so engrossed in the senses. But if you transcend and say you are more in the heart, more into the happiness, the connection, the joy, the compassion, then your sense of self is different, right? Your sense of self is more connected. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the reality is more fluid. It's not so what I see is what there is. There's nothing else. It's not so concrete anymore. Um, and there is fluidity and more connectedness and more expansion. And then when your mind is really expanded and stay expanded, then it challenged the actual perception and knowing and awareness itself.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so this is where the insights come up, right?
Yeah, lots and lots of insight. Um, and then I heard all this thing about people having wonderful meditation experience, and this experience happened to this experience. But the what we experience, it have a purpose of shifting us and giving us insight. But if this experiencing is just to give us pleasure in that moment, it's pretty useless.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I understand that. It's kind of like using a drug in a way. You have your fun, but and maybe if you take some whatever, and then you have an insight maybe, but at the moment you're off the drug, you cannot remember, and you sort of, I don't know, you can. It's not of use, right? Just for the sake of being high in the moment, and then the next moment, of course, you're not high anymore. So yeah. So there has to come the insight with it, right?
Yeah, but more importantly, if insight and experience is just adding on to our knowledge, it's just accumulate and accumulate into this ginormous library in our head. It's no point, because if all there is to it, it just stay there. The whole
Mm-hmm.
purpose is to shift, right? To shift, to be able to let go, to be able to transcend, in to be able to connect, and able to be more kind, more gentle, be able to have more peace. If it doesn't shift us in that way, what's the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's
Yeah,
just
yeah, right.
adding to our basket of knowledge, is yeah, it defeat the purpose.
Mhm.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very interesting. So we start changing towards this unconventional reality, meaning towards this absolute total reality in um, following, mm, maybe, yeah, that's a Buddhist term, but sort of the Noble Eightfold
Mm,
Path, so to speak, right? So or
well,
cultivating a wholesome.
here's the paradox. We might call it the ultimate reality, right? But it's not a reality at all. It is the absence of reality.
So it's not a state, not a realm, or
No, it's not a reality. It's not a state. It's not a realm. It's the absence of reality. We just label it ultimate reality to communicate, but
Mhm,
in reality of itself, it's not a reality, right? It's the absence of reality. It's the absence of any state. It's the it's not the absence, it's the total cessation, it's total extinguishment of any reality.
mhm.
So that's why we're going back to the yes and no paradox kind of the thing.
Yeah, yeah, I see. That's an interesting topic. I mean, what we are trying to explain or discuss here is, like the conventional reality can be explained with the conventional understanding, of course, but sort of this so-called, yeah, total reality is really hard to describe with the conventional words in understanding, right? So it's kind of like giving you a blurry picture of something, but you yourself have to sort of zoom in to make it more sharp and understand what that actually might mean. Um, yeah, but it's definitely a good signpost and important to understand. I found it important to talk about these different realities, and also what you said before. I find it nice, and that you said, sometimes this reality of us becomes so concrete, right? So it becomes so, yeah, I don't know, you cannot change everything. My life is like this. My life sucks. Whatever happens, this is, I don't know. And then maybe that's a sort of silver lining on the horizon, that the reality is, you make your reality happening. Maybe when you were a child and you grow up to a teen, your parents and the culture and the society is more or less responsible for sort of, yeah, forming you. Yeah, it's sort of, yeah, um, making you the way you are, or that you perceive your reality and your friends. But then it comes to time when you're sort of after puberty, then you sort of start thinking and requesting and having skepticism about things. And then yeah, so then you creating the reality yourself, right? um
Mm, it's not that we don't have that control, that much control. It just seemed like we create our own reality, but in the sense we are the puppet. We don't have that control. We don't. It's only when we are self-aware, and the more
mhm,
self-aware you are, the more you're able to create your own reality. But until
mhm.
then, we're a total puppet.
Yes,
um,
yes.
and it is the program that been taught to us and conditioned to us that they the one that create the reality. They the it's because we're so easily manipulated. It is the government that create the reality. The media especially create the reality for us if
Good
you're
point.
not self-aware.
Yes, yes, very much. Yeah, we basically a puppet to so many things, like, or being slave to things, actually, in a way. Yeah, media is a very good point. Politics and all the happenings in the world, and we stuck with it, and then and yeah, and then they stir us up, they drive us into a certain direction, they make us having an opinion, and then we cling to that opinion, and if anyone else has an opinion, we fight, and all that sort of chaos. So it's actually good what you say, and I think we covered that puppet scenario in one of our first talks, I think.
Yeah, second thought.
Second thought. Yeah.
So so we have to be aware that people say, you know, we create this reality, we create that reality, and positive attract, and all of these. In order to create our own reality, we have to be very self-aware.
Yes, because then we cut the habits, right? The routines, the autopilot of the mind, right? And then sort of replace it with something very wholesome. It's like once we understand that there's a gap in between moments, and then we are aware of that moment, and then we sort of fill that with whatever kindness and gratitude and whatever makes the consciousness be happy, not the
Um,
central realm.
it's not so much gap, it's more like being the watcher. The more we become the third person and watch, we're coming back to like strong mindfulness. The more we develop to that stage and we keep watching, then in that watching and in that awareness, then we have a choice, more of a choice, seemingly, to to decide, right? Um, but in that decision, it needs wisdom also, because how are we supposed to know uh, what reality to create?
Good point.
Because
So what
what
would you suggest?
what what seemingly good now might not be good later. What seemingly good
True.
for us might not be good for other people. So so
Yeah, there's this example of that sort of very ambitious young guy seeing an old woman, elderly woman on the street, and you know at the traffic light, and then he's helping her over, right, very ambitiously, and then it turns out to be that she actually didn't want to cross the street. So yeah, so maybe what the guy thought was good for that old woman was in the end not good for that old woman because she didn't want to cross. So yeah, that's right. So it takes a lot of wisdom and empathy, maybe, or uh, sharpness and awareness. Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. Um, the wisdom have to guide the heart, um, or else the heart just jump in and might do damage instead of good.
And
Uh,
yeah, I just wrote down something maybe we can cover in our next talk. Like, where is wisdom coming from, right? Is it actually coming from the base of intellect, like having decorative knowledge about, you know, you hear some Dhamma talks, you read some books, and you have some talks, and then you accumulate that, and then you sort of apply it into your daily life? Or is wisdom more coming from an intuition where you feel what's right and you feel what's wrong, or does it just come from mere practicing meditation and it bubbles up? So
okay.
I'd
Mm,
also talk about it now.
wisdom is the how pure the mind is, I would say. So if we are not pure and we have all these program running and we can't be the watcher, then we're not very wise, because we are being pulled here, pulled there like a monkey, very scattered, very noisy. And our perception is very distorted by our feelings, by our biases. So that's how lots of lenses that we see through to the world.
Yes.
As we become more pure, right? Releasing and calming the mind, then we see further, right? More insight come, and that is what wisdom is. Wisdom is the wisdom, is the insight, the ability to see things through a very pure mind,
Mm-hmm.
sharp, clear mind. So it's a ability of a strong developed mind.
Okay,
That
so
is self-aware aspect also.
So yeah, we also talk about the being aware of the body, but also what we haven't covered yet really is the other five sort of the other processes or the other khandhas, right? Like you can focus on feeling too, or you can focus on mental formations too. But we talked about the body and the consciousness now. Maybe we might also talk about the feeling aspect, as it's a very strong thing which makes us do things, right? And makes us think in a specific way, and makes us it's feeling is
So
everywhere.
I will cover feeling and labeling perception. That's helpful because even though feeling drive everybody, feeling is also something that we can anchor our consciousness in the body to feel things in the body instead of let it become emotion and labeling. This is quite an important topic. Yeah. Any more questions on reality?
No, actually, we've covered everything quite well, I think. At least there's not coming any question to mind now. I mean, if the audience comes up with a question, of course, we will have a look at it. But for me now, everything is clear.
Yeah. So reality based on the lenses that the sense seeing through, but also where is that sense of self? Like, is it stuck in the body, or is it stuck in heaven, or is it stuck in the immaterial?
Yeah.
And then you have the reality with all multidimensional reality, and then you have the absence of reality. What is reality seeing through from the point of an absence of reality? You know what I mean? From a perspective of absence of reality, what does reality look like?
I mean, it's impossible to really imagine that, right? It's really hard. Also, this multi-dimensional thing, because we grown up with, we know what 2D is, like what 3D is, like we are 3D.
No, multi-dimensional. I don't mean I don't mean that. I don't mean 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. I mean more like the earth realm, more like the heaven realm, more like the immaterial realm, more like that.
Okay. So more
Whether that
places.
translate into fifth, sixth dimension, that's another very speculative physics kind of talk.
That is true, yeah. And I don't know much about it. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. Yeah, it's been great hearing about these different realities. I mean, for some of us, our reality right now, in terms of body, feeling, perception, consciousness, and mental formation, becomes more clear, and we might even go through the day now and see it with a different point of view at our, say, behavior and thoughts and speech, which is always good. So I think, yeah, that talk might have contributed to a bit more awareness. At least I hope so. And yeah, it was amazing talk to you again. So I really enjoy our talks, and yeah. So
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah,
thanks.
thank you for tuning in, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye, Fabian.
See you next time, guys. Bye, Kishin.